Yeah, we're here on the campus of NJIT in Newark, New Jersey for the Senate budget hearings. It's our second stop on our attempt to get the state legislators to understand what is the problem with the funding formula, and specifically how much harm it would be doing to Toms River schools. On March 5th, we rallied in Trenton for the governor's address, brought over 1,000 students. There were students from 70 other schools, and we really made an impact. It was clear that at that point the governor was listening to us. Some of his staff members reached out to our schools. Our real point here is just to educate them about the flaws in the funding formula. But what we also found out from the trip to Trenton on March 5th was that the impact of students is so much greater than all of the emails and the testimonies that we've done before, just to put a face on these budget cuts. What's really great about these field trips is that students are getting educated about the issue. They're personally interested about it. All these students are volunteers. Many of them are in political science. So it's a real learning experience for them to see democracy in action, to have their voices heard.
All stand up, all the students from Toms River. Hopefully today is a learning session for you as well about the work that the legislature does.
We're really excited because the leader in many ways on this issue is our own Superintendent, Mr. Healy, and our business administrator, Mr. Doring, who has provided these facts, really the flaws in the formula, why it doesn't work as it is and why it's unjust as it is. Mr. Healy will be testifying today in front of our students, which I think is another really great thing for students to experience.
Thank you, Chairman Sarlo. Before you begin my time, I would be remiss if I didn't really recognize you as the chairman for really chairing a committee here that has been very courteous and professional in terms of allowing most people to be heard. And I certainly appreciate that, and I know everybody here's cause is important to them, so we thank you. So my name is David Healy, and I proudly serve as the Superintendent of Toms River Regional School District. And I testify today on behalf of my school district representing 15,200 children, and a portion of them are here with us today. If this was the largest place, they'd all be here today. And we have the support of the community, the board, the parents, because this is such a dire situation for us. We also have 2,700 full-time or part-time staff, and in the next 6 years, we will cumulatively, and I'll repeat this, we will cumulatively lose $83 million. $2.8 million this year, added to the $2.4 million last year, and that's because of the state aid cuts within S2. So, some would argue that a decrease in enrollments should simply correlate to a decrease in state aid, thereby justifying the draconian cuts in state aid. By using Toms River as just one example, our low cost per pupil, which is the second overall, soon to be the first overall total cost per pupil in the state of New Jersey, added to the $37 million we are currently under adequacy, we have a serious issue here. Some might be led to believe that districts and communities like ours simply are overfunded and wealthy. We are neither. We have yet to fully recover from a $2.2 billion rateable loss from Hurricane Sandy, which was 50% of all state losses, and we have $500 million that remain to be on the books. Compounded, we lost over 10,000 homes to Sandy, and we endured thousands more in foreclosures. In fact, Toms River leads the county, the state, and the country in terms of percentage of foreclosures. And so when I give you the other pieces of information, we also lead the county in homelessness, and we're 8th in the state of New Jersey. Our free and reduced lunch population has doubled in the last 10 years, where we're approaching 30%. And as you know, free and reduced lunch is an indicator of at or below poverty. And it is a changing in our demographics. My mission today has been for the better part of 2 years. Many of you, Senator Sarlo, we have spoken in the past. We've shared a number of pieces of documentation with both the Senate and the Assembly, the New Jersey Department of Education, the Governor's Office, the Senate President. But this is the first year that we're bringing out children. And I'm proud to have our children here, and Senator Sarlo, I'm really pleased that you acknowledge them, because none of us would be in this room right now, for the most part, if it wasn't for children. And therefore, we have to bring our focus on our decisions have to be child-centered and not adult-centered. And that's why I'm here for these children who will lose 400 staff members in the next 5 years. I'm having a meeting Monday to speak with all my non-tenureds and telling them they're not coming back next year. I had to send 2 staff home last week because they had a breakdown in class because they were losing their jobs. And we're cutting football, we're eliminating full-day kindergarten, we're still raising our taxes to 2% cap. We're doing everything we can just to manage to run a thorough and efficient education for our children. And I sit here today telling you that there's no possible way that we're going to be able to do that. And so I don't think S2, the intention of S2 was to do that to any district. And I represent all students in this state, and the NJA representative said, you know, we're pitting children against children, and that's what's happening. You see some districts that now have lowered their class sizes from 40 to 28. Well, guess what? Our class sizes now are the next district to be 45 and 46. So we can't keep moving the money until we convene a bipartisan committee, as I have requested in our letters, to evaluate the merits of S2, but most importantly, to evaluate the merits of the funding formula, which, by the way, is anything but fair. And Mr. During and I left you my business cards with our testimony. I would love for you to call me and sit down, and we will give you an education, respectfully, on really where the flaws lie. So my mission, as I said earlier, is about kids. There's nothing else in it for me. I'm here for kids. And it would be irresponsible of me or any superintendent or child advocate, and I assume you're among them, to sit back, and I use the analogy, it's as if you're sitting on one chair in front of your house, tied to your chair, and you're watching your house go up in flames, and your photo albums, all your mementos, all the things you worked for, you're watching, and you can't do anything about it. You can't grab a hose. And that's what it feels like for me right now and for us. And so, as I said, it would be irresponsible for me not to advocate for my 15,500 children. I'm here on behalf of 110,000 Toms River residents, 76,000 of which are registered voters, my administrators, my kids, and the future of our community. So I ask respectfully to this Senate committee, what is your mission? And what is your mission if you support legislation that leaves in its wake thousands of vulnerable students for whom achievement, security, and well-being is compromised? I sit on the precipice, as I said, of eliminating 400, nearly a third of our instructional staff in the next 5 years. I'm not going to let it happen. And that's why I'm here. It's just not the right thing to do for any of us. And 80 this year alone, or over 80 this year alone, with sweeping cuts to core services, programs, and drastically increased class sizes over 40, our district will be unrecognizable, if not inoperable. These decisions, they're based on a critically flawed formula. It is critically flawed. Make no mistake about it. Anybody that says it isn't and it's working, it's flawed. And we will testify how it's flawed. And we have presented documentation to the governor's staffers how flawed it is. We're prepared to do that. I implore you to look at the merits, because you don't want to be here every year. We're here every year. We're talking about funding formula. And none of us want to be here. And there shouldn't be any losers in this state. And there are losers. So today, and in terms of the state issues, none of us would be here today if it wasn't for children, all children, our children. May we be reminded today of whom we're here to serve, and may we reinstill in our children. Very important lesson here, Senator Sarlo. You talked, yes, very important lesson. You talked about the civic lessons here and the community service, that we teach that to our children. They're learning that the adults in their lives, us here, are to be trusted, because we're here to support them. When many young people are questioning the loyalty and the support that adults provide to children, and we are providing that to children. So there's only one side here, and that is our children. I implore all of you to listen closely to this testimony, remain open-minded, take swift action based on a child-centered agenda before irreparable harm is done to hundreds of school districts and tens of thousands of children, and they serve. So I appreciate the extended time. I know the superintendent from Greenwich gave us her time, and we appreciate that. Also important, I represent one of 73 districts. I'm not here alone. Not all these children are ours. They represent 73 districts of the 180 that lost money. They represent the 4,000 students that were at the State House on Tuesday, March 5th. This is about kids. Remember that. In every decision, we use a term in education. Do you have a child-centered agenda or an adult-centered agenda? And in my meetings with my staff, I remind them, when we're talking about adults all the time and what's good for adults, we bring it back to why we're in this business and why we're here. And when you bring it to a child-centered agenda, the decisions become so clear on what is right. And so I beg you, I implore you to do that instead of solo. I thank you for giving me the time. It's very important, and I want to thank my students for being here. And these students, but make no mistake about it, these students represent all the students that are affected, and they're part of that coalition, not just Toms River. And I thank you again.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you.